And we shall have this on right now. This would probably be a little bit in the way, so just stay right there. And we see that we are live right over here on Twitch. So I think right now we should go ahead and get things started. So let's just set this up. All right, I think we're perfect. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. And in today's episode, let me tell you guys, we got a whole bunch of fascinating stories to go and talk about, because there have been plenty of things this week in which animation really is the headline right over here. And there have been plenty of things to go and discuss about. I think we are going to have quite a memorable episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. But hopefully we will have a good, memorable episode. That's at least what I am hoping right over here. Alright, so I think that's all I have to say right now. Do we have any questions, first of all, in the chat wall? Just want to see if we could go ahead and get things started right over there. Just ease on in before we really get into those stories. So, do you guys want to ask anything before we begin this podcast? No? Anything? Just want to see right now. No, Starty Max, mayonnaise is not an instrument. Horseradish is not an instrument either. That's fine, nobody has any experience. Let's see. Why are you buying clothes at the soup store? Shut up! Okay, so I think with all that said, we should be pretty much prepared right now to go and get things started. So I would like to ask right now in the chat wall, hello everybody, so are you guys ready to begin this first major episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast? Well, maybe not necessarily the first major episode, but are you ready for this episode in particular? So, are we ready to begin? Yes, it looks like we are ready. Well, one's not ready, but too bad. We're going to start this anyways. Looks like everybody else is ready, so why not go ahead and get things started right now? And with our first story, I am going to say two frightening words that are going to scare a certain fan base. Because this fan base had some experience with those two words before, and it ended up going quite terribly. And that is not an exaggeration. Like, it was really bad all around. And of course, I am referring to the Avatar fans. Avatar: The Last Airbender, if you will. And no, those two words are not necessarily the Fire Nation. What I mean more is actually live action. And we are going to go and begin with our first story. Yes, everything has now changed when the Netflix nation attacked. Yes, Avatar: The Last Airbender is going to be getting a live action series exclusively on Netflix. Now, the announcement was made today, and so far we didn't necessarily get so much information regarding this. We didn't really have much info regarding the cast, how they're going to execute it, or when is it even going to be released. The only thing that we do know so far is who is going to be involved. And that's the one major positive thing that people would really point out. And that is actually the original creators of the series, Michael D. Martino and Brian Konietzko. Hopefully I'm saying those names right. So, the original creators of the series, they will be returning not only as executive producers, but they will also be showrunners as well. And on top of that, it has stated right over here in my source in Deadline, stating that the new series will be made in partnership with Nickelodeon, with production starting next year. And we also got a quote here from the show creators themselves, as it states, we're thrilled for the opportunity to helm this live-action adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender. We can't wait to realize Aang's world as cinematically as we always imagined it to be, and with culturally appropriate, not whitewashed cast. It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance to build upon everyone's great work on the original animated series and go even deeper into the characters, story, action, and world building. Netflix is wholly dedicated to manifesting our vision for this retelling, and we're incredibly grateful to be partnering with them. We also got another quote here from the VP of Kids and Family Content, Melissa Cobb, as she states right over here, "We are committed to honoring Brian and Mike's vision for this retelling and are thrilled to support them on creating a live-action event series, bringing Aang's epic world of elemental magic to life for global audiences on Netflix." So that's so far the big thing that we know regarding Avatar The Last Airbender on Netflix, is that it's going to be in live action, plus the fact the original show creators, they are going to be taking charge in this series, just like what they did with the original animated show. Now, you might be curious, and some might probably not know, regarding the factor that this is not necessarily their first time going into live action, and by they I mean Avatar and Avatar Aang and the gang. This is not their first time going into live action, and the last time it was a massive disaster. Back in 2010, you might recall M. Night Shyamalan has created a whole movie called The Last Airbender, which was a live-action film adaptation of the first season of Avatar The Last Airbender. And I'm just going to say right now, you do not have to be a fan of Avatar The Last Airbender to know that it was a terrible movie. Like, it was really, really bad. And it's not just the factor that it really does feel insulting as an adaptation to the original animated series. There are also so many problematic issues with it. Like, the acting is just garbage. The script is nearly unusable. Like, it is surprising that a company would actually pick that up and say, it's good enough. And also, the dialogue is an absolute joke. Not to mention that the film would also deliver a lot of hilariously terrible moments. And I'm referring to stuff like the beliefs line from the princess, or Zuko when he would say that we must wait until everyone is fighting against everyone. There's also the Water Nation tribe and their little howl. Like, when they're ready for battle, they would go, oh, that, and also the world-famous Earth Nation dance of picking up a little rock. So yeah, there's a lot of really terrible moments in there, and even to this day, a lot of people would point that out as one of the worst movies of the decade. Now, it is great that M. Night Shyamalan himself really did pick himself back up as a director, and he has returned to making some enjoyable feature films. I was about to say animated, but no, I don't think he has done one yet. But after Split and stuff like that, so far things have been going pretty well for him, and people are back to taking him seriously as a director. So good on M. Night Shyamalan, but my God, that experience was absolutely horrible. And on top of that, going back into what Netflix is doing right now, there are some fans that rightfully they are a little bit worried about this little series that they are planning right over here, considering that they had a bit of a bad experience from a live-action Avatar The Last Airbender adaptation. So this series would have to do quite a lot in order to get past their PTSD so that they might actually enjoy this interpretation right over here. And also another factor that is a little bit worrying that not many people would point out is actually the factor that it is from Netflix. And I'm just gonna say, Netflix does not necessarily have a good track record of taking an animated property and turn that into live action. And if you don't believe me, well, then you probably should go and check out Death Note, like the American Death Note movie. Oh boy, that thing was an entire work right over there in itself. Hey boy. So yeah, and even I see in the chat wall, people would even go and bring up Death Note. So that's exactly what I mean. So of course there is a lot of factors that really are worrisome. But then again, The one thing that does heal some wounds regarding this news is actually bringing in Michael DiMartino and Brian Konietzko, bringing them over in order to do this, and for them to really be in charge, not just as executive producers to be on the side, but to really get their hands into crafting this series. So with them, you can guarantee that it is definitely going to be a step up from The Last Airbender no matter what. Like, they will make sure that they will capture the same tone, the same energy, the same action, and even some of the same humor that the animated series went on to go and deliver to this one. So it definitely is reassuring right there. And one thing that I will also add that is actually reassuring is actually the factor of The Last Airbender. Like, one thing that I will say that with The Last Airbender, now that it does exist, there is something that is good that this Netflix series can actually benefit. And it's actually look at that movie and use that as a prominent example of what not to do. Like, make sure that they don't screw up as much as that film does. Don't go in that direction. So they do have a template of what not to do, of what, just to go and avoid. And it's actually interesting to point that out, considering that, excuse me. Sorry about that. But as I was saying, it's very interesting to point out because you could tell that The Last Airbender is going to be a massive influence. And that's why you should never underestimate the power of bad movies as well, that they can have the power to really influence as much as great films can. It's just the difference is that they will prove as an example of what not to do so that filmmakers and aspiring filmmakers can avoid those mistakes in order to craft their work so that they can make sure that they can do it right. So that could be the direction that they're going. And even the show creators, they already mentioned that they will promise to go and devote themselves to make sure that everything is right, that everything can go step by step, and it can be as good as the original. And it says even right over here that I've already stated this, but we can't wait to realize Aang's world as cinematically as well as we can't wait to realize Aang's world as cinematically as we always imagined it to be, and with a culturally appropriate non-whitewashed cast. So they want to make sure the cast is great, that it looks great. They want to make sure that everything goes well with it. But there is one thing that I will mention, and this is just coming from me. This is just my personal opinion right over here, what I think about this Netflix series. And for me, honestly, even though it does show a lot of promise, even though that Netflix did bring in the show's creators in order to go and craft this movie right over here, for me, my issue is just that, do we really need this? I mean, basically what they're doing right over here is just make Avatar: The Last Airbender again. The only difference is just the fact that they're just going to adapt it into live action instead of animation. And for me, I'm starting to feel a bit tired right now of that as an excuse to go and create a remake. You know, that some people would think that it is enough of a change to take an animated property and just do the exact same thing as that did, but just do so in live action. It's not enough of a legitimate excuse to go and create a project. It honestly feels lazy in a way, and I remember seeing someone tweeting this, that doing so really does undermine animation as a medium. So in a way, it's a little bit insulting in a sense. And if there's anything that the Disney live action remakes taught us, is that even though you would go and do that, that doesn't necessarily mean that the live action project will be any better. So honestly, I do have my doubts if this series right over here, even if it would do the exact same things as the animated series would, like, I'm not sure if this would actually be something that can even get up to the standards of the original. And on top of that, as someone who has already seen the series and really enjoyed it, I gotta ask, what is this going to offer that the animated series doesn't. And I need more of an excuse than just, oh, well, this is going to be live action. And what's actually very interesting is that I remember talking to my friends about this because they're also major fans of The Last Airbender, and they were the ones who introduced me to Avatar The Last Airbender. What's very fascinating to actually note about this is actually the fact that what would have been a better idea is if they would go and actually find out to make a new series about this. More like, do some kind of spin-off or something like that, Like, it would have been a more interesting idea if they would make a live-action series based on the life of Uncle Iroh, or if they would do if they would do like a prequel series based on the adventures of the previous Avatar before Aang would come in. Or better yet, how about like a prequel series that stars Aang before that he decided to go and freeze himself into that water, like all before the first episode of the events where like the two main characters would go and find Aang frozen on ice with Appa and stuff like that. Like they probably could have gone into that direction to offer something new, offer something unique. And what would be better is to have a chance to really go and expand upon the world of Avatar The Last Airbender. But just doing a remake of the series, honestly, I feel like they're just going into the lazy route. And I have to ask again, what is this going to offer that that I haven't already seen before? And honestly, just doing it in live action is just not enough of an excuse for me. So, I will say, though, I have seen some positive comments, of course, because of many of these factors, especially with the original show creators coming back to this. I have seen a lot of positive comments, a lot of people that are actually excited for this, mainly because they would go and discuss about Avatar The Last Airbender, and what they will say is that because of this existing, it's going to bring back some relevancy to the original animated series and have that popularity happen all over again. Like, it is true, but still, like, for someone, like, it is a great idea to introduce new audiences to Avatar The Last Airbender, but for me, I just feel like, as someone who has already seen the show and really enjoyed it, what is this going to do that's going to be different than what I have already seen? I'm just asking. So I am a little bit doubtful, to be honest. Okay, so with all that said and done, I would like to go into the chat wall right over here, and I would like to ask you guys, what do you think about this new Netflix series? What do you think about Avatar The Last Airbender coming into live action onto Netflix? Are you guys excited for it? Are you guys a little bit doubtful? I would like to know your thoughts right now. Let's see. The original creators were credited as executive producers of the Shamalama Ding Dong film, though I doubt they have any impact over it. Okay, that could be a good point, actually. I think it will be better received than the live-action film, but it won't be as good as the Nickelodeon animated series. At least they have the original creators coming back, and it does look promising the way that they want to make sure everything is good. Yeah, you do bring up a pretty good point. I think, like, we can just state this as a fact that no matter what they're gonna do right over here, they will do their best to make sure that it will be better than the live action movie that Shyamalan has done. I mean, like, M. Night Shyamalan already set the bar so low for The Last Airbender that it's not that hard to do something that could be a little bit better. So it's really easy to imagine that this will be better than the Shyamalan movie. But if it can get up to the standards of the Nickelodeon animated series, that would remain to be seen. Alright, let's see. You know what? I'm all good for the live action show of The Last Airbender. As long as they actually pronounce the names of the characters right, I'm game for it. Yeah, that is true, you know? Like, that is something that I do agree. And this is coming from the guy who would commonly mispronounce names, but even I know better that his name is Aang and it's not Ong. Seriously, like, just saying Ong, it sounds more like a sound effect than an actual name. I'm just saying. Let's see. I'm nervous. I've seen all 3 seasons, including Legend of Korra series as well, but as long as they get it right, then I would like it. Okay. And no whitewashing, yay. Well, that's definitely a plus. Like, that could be something that already it sets, like, this series has already set the bar higher than the movie right there. Okay, but also I will say right over here that even though we don't have an official release date, it did state in Deadline that the production will begin next year. So chances are we could be seeing this sometime either in 2020 or in 2021. Who knows, but let's just see what happens, and hopefully things will turn out for the best for this series. But I guess in the meantime, we can always rewatch the animated series, and at least we know which one will be the best adaptation so far. I mean, we only got, as a comparison, just the animated series and the movie, so might as well just stick with the series. Okay, so I think we're pretty much good with Netflix, and now we are going to move on to a trailer right over here. And before I begin, I just want to mention that this week we did have a lot of animated trailers. However, I will say though that these are trailers to movies that we have already discussed about. We have already seen previous trailers of those movies, and what I mean by that is stuff like, you know, The Grinch by Illumination Entertainment, and also Ralph Breaks the Internet once again. And from those trailers, like, we have already seen them, and I've already discussed about them here in AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. And honestly, this is more of a personal reason. I don't want to check out those trailers, and I don't really want to go and talk about them, because at this point, November is just around the corner. And if I'm going to be watching more trailers and more clips and stuff like that, then I'm pretty much going to be entering into spoiler territory, and I think it's probably for the best that I would just set aside them, and I'll just keep all the surprises until the movies would be officially released. So hopefully you can understand that. But that doesn't mean we're not going to be watching a trailer now, because there is one trailer that a lot of people have been talking about, and oh my god, did it really make people excited for this one, because it seemed that it might actually do the impossible. It might actually get up to the standards, or at least get the same spirit of the original 1964 film. So without further ado, let's go ahead and check out the trailer for Mary Poppins Returns. Oh man, I can't wait to get back onto this.
I honestly can't remember why we kept most of
Oops. Oh,
the stuff to begin
Sorry
with.
about that.
Don't you remember that
That was the
kite?
computer.
We used to love flying that with Mother and Father.
Those days are long behind me.
How did that kid just randomly pick up that kite? That is something that I am a little bit...
That's why I live and breathe.
I was flying the kite and it got caught on a nanny.
Mary,
Poppins, you came back.
you seem hardly to have aged at all.
Really? One never discusses a woman's age, Michael. Would have hoped I taught you better.
What brings you here after all this time?
Same thing that brought me the first time. I've come to look after the bank's children.
Us?
Oh, yes, you too.
We're about to lose our home. Everything's fallen to pieces since your mother.
I miss Mother.
Nothing's gone forever, only out of place.
All right, now this is the
It's good
real
that you
part.
come along when you did,
Or
Mary
is it?
Poppins.
Oh, it's a little bit. A little bit.
Do what?
All right, this is it. This is the moment.
So you've been off filling the children's heads with stuff and nonsense.
You've forgotten what it's like to be a child.
Everything is possible.
Even the impossible. Off we go.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is the legendary trailer of the long delayed sequel of Mary Poppins. Yes, Mary Poppins Returns. So basically what we have seen is we just saw the comeback of Mary Poppins, how she returned to the Banks family and the Banks children now that they have grown up and they have their children of their own. So the beginning is pretty much a little bit similar to what we just saw with the teaser trailer, but now they really went into more about what the story is going to be about. And most importantly, what this trailer is trying to prove here is try to capture the same spirit of the original 1964 feature. And from there, it looks like they might actually do it. They might actually succeed and try to capture that same tone, that same spirit, that same sense of magic that Walt Disney originally brought out with his team of artists, animators, filmmakers, and songwriters onto that film. And that's the part that really does make it pretty exciting. But before anything, let's just go ahead and just discuss about probably the one factor that really does stand out the most out of anything. It's when they all go into the realm of animation, in hand-drawn animation. And that's probably the most exciting part about this. Like, to quote Deadpool, I am glad to be watching this and wearing the white pants. Like, it really is that amazing. Now, the thing is, what really does make it look absolutely beautiful is the factor that it's honestly been such a long time, probably, like, we have never seen this form of animation be used so prominently since Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Now, I know that with many mainstream movies, we have seen quite a lot that would mix hand-drawn animation with live action, but never in the levels that this is presenting. Never in a way that is seen something like this, you know? We haven't seen that in such a long time, and honestly, that is one major factor that really got a lot of people excited, is seeing classic Disney hand-drawn animation come back to the big screen, which is something that we haven't really seen we haven't seen that used on such a big scale since the 2011 Winnie the Pooh movie. And that alone, of course, when you bring back hand-drawn animation, a lot of people in the animation community, of course, they will get, like, uber excited about that. But I will say, though, that maybe this could be a little bit of the case of the Ralph Breaks the Internet with the Disney Princess scene, that people might get excited over a scene that might only happen for like a few minutes and that's it. But still, there are plenty of other factors that really are quite fascinating to check out. And it's not just the hand-drawn animation, but also like when you look at some of the sets right over here. Like a great example is when you check out, like when you see them swimming, you see them swimming and you see treasures. Like, if you just take that picture alone, it would seem like they're doing a live-action remake of Bedknobs and Broomsticks, which is kind of ironic since we also see a little bit of Angela Lansbury on the side. But then there is also this little factor. Hold on a sec. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Don't go a little too fast. Like, you see Lin-Manuel Miranda in his pink suit, and you see, like, this magical book setting. And that's going to be another factor that is going to look absolutely phenomenal here. And probably another thing that is really worth getting excited over, and that is going to be the production design, where the backgrounds and when you see the characters go into the magical world, like, that is going to be a factor that will be exciting, and that will be a factor that people will get excited to go and check this one out, because even the production design in the original Mary Poppins, it is something that is left to be worth admired for. So this one, obviously, in a visual scale, it is following the same footsteps as that movie, and so far from what we've seen in that trailer, it is doing an impeccable job at doing so. So that's honestly going to be something that's really to be highly anticipated to go and check out Mary Poppins Returns, as at least this is going to be a magical experience, at least for the eyes. But I will say, however, there is one thing that I will criticize, that I am a little bit doubtful regarding what we see in this trailer here, and that is actually the factor with Michael. Because, honestly, when it comes to Michael right over here and how he presents himself as a character, he's pretty much going into the same cliched route that we have already seen before. And this is mostly a case of bad timing, but Michael here is pretty much acting just like Christopher Robin that we've just seen in August. Like, he's gonna be your typical grown-up character that we usually remember as a child, and that he needs a bit of a reminder that he needs to think like a kid again to get in touch with his inner kid. In fact, like, they pretty much labeled it right there in the trailer with that little Angela Lansbury moment.
To be a child.
Yeah, that part right there, like, like, that's going to be a side plot that is often going to be cliched, it's often overdone, we already know. It's just the factor that, yeah, Michael needs to get in touch with his inner kid and not always think like a grown-up. I mean, like, yeah, even though it does seem tiresome because we just went through that with Christopher Robin, but even at that, it was dull, tiresome, and already reused when it was done in Christopher Robin, so it might feel tired and reused with Mary Poppins Returns. I could be wrong, that might not be the case, and that might not even be the side plot regarding Michael right over here, but that is the factor that I do feel like I have, like, a bit of doubt from this trailer alone, is just the way that they're delivering this. It's honestly something that I feel like, I don't know, it's just like the story itself. It's more in terms of the writing, where that might not be polished, that might not be practically perfect in any way, you know, as a bit of a play on words right over there. But honestly, seeing this though, like, that's just on that aspect. But from what I do see, this is a very, very promising trailer. The acting is actually pretty good. I will give the actors credit that it does look like they are doing a pretty good job. Even Emily Blunt herself does fit in well in the role of Mary Poppins. Like, she is following in the same footsteps as Julie Andrews quite swiftly right over here, so that is good to know. And also, my god, is it visually beautiful. But before I go and ask questions on the chat wall right over here, there is something that I would like to point out. A little thing that I decided to do on social media during the time when this trailer was released. And feel free to call me crazy on that. But what I decided to do is that I noticed that there was something a little bit interesting right over here with this trailer, and especially with this movie itself, is the factor that it's pretty much going to be released at the end of this year, in the middle of December, which during that time, it's going to be released right at the same time, or like a little bit after, at least, as, my mind is drawing a blank. There it is, as Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So, yes, both those films are pretty much going to be on the big screen at the same time. And from what we've seen, they're both going to be using visually innovative techniques in order to tell their story. And, of course, using animation that people are really getting excited about. Whether it be Mary Poppins' big mix of live action and hand-drawn animation and use that very prominently, or the new and experimental use of Into the Spider-Verse, where they're trying to capture a lot more of that comic book feeling, and it does have a bit of that stop-motion touch. Now from there, I decided to go on social media and try to do a little bit of a poll, to do a little bit of a vote on both Facebook and Twitter to see which one people are excited to go and check out. Like, among those two films, which ones are they more excited for? Mary Poppins Returns or Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse? And I'm going to say right now, the results are actually extremely interesting because you could pretty much say that everybody is split 50-50 on this one. Because the thing is, in both results, it is extremely similar, where the results seem to be somewhere in between 50-50 and 40-60. So you see a little bit more like 59% to 41 or like 57 to 43 and stuff like that. But what really does seem fascinating is that if you go on trailer, what the fridge am I thinking? If you go on Twitter, people would lean a little bit more towards Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. But if you go on Facebook, people would actually lean a little bit more towards Mary Poppins Returns. So in a way, it really is split 50-50 to know what people are more excited for, either Mary Poppins Returns and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So there is going to be some very fascinating and intense competition at the end of this year. But even just that alone, like, it is going to be interesting, but even in general, like, when you look at the movies that are going to be coming out in December, it's going to be a crazy holiday in theaters because pretty much every single major studio, they are going to be releasing a big movie. Like, it's not just Disney with Mary Poppins Returns and Sony with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, but you also got Universal with Peter Jackson's next big epic Lord of the Rings style movie with Mortal Engines. Then you also got Paramount Pictures with Bumblebee, you got Warner Brothers with Aquaman, and you got 20th Century Fox with Alita Battle Angel. So it's going to be a major nut house going on at the it's going to be a major nut house in theaters during that time. So it really is going to be the case of may the best movie win. Like, the only one who's going to come out supreme among all those films is going to be the one that's going to get the most critical acclaim. Like, the one who's going to be closest to 100% on Rotten Tomatoes or get the highest score on Metacritic and stuff like that, that's going to be the movie that will stand out among all those. So we will have to wait and see which one will remain supreme. But so far, this is actually going to be very interesting right over here. But at least with Mary Poppins Returns, it does seem like a very, very prominent contender. So from there, I would like to go into the chat wall right over here. And I would like to ask you guys, what do you think of this trailer of Mary Poppins Returns? Like, forget about all the other movies. Let's just focus on this one. Are you guys excited for this trailer? Are you guys interested in checking out Mary Poppins Returns? Did this sell you? Are you really amazed by the visuals? Are you not that fascinated with it? I would like to know what you think. Alright, so let's see. Now, I was never really that big on Mary Poppins, but it's a good film with great songs and amazing animation sequences, but this new trailer for Mary Poppins Returns looks like it could do even better. Also, Dick Van Dyke is back. Now, that's a good sign. That is definitely true. Let's see. I really like the original Mary Poppins, so this is one film I'm really hyped for. The animation, live-action blend feels seamless. The acting is promising. My only real complaint is that Emily Blunt is a good choice, but she will never top Yondu. Oh, I get you, man. I get you, man. No, there's only one person who can top Yondu, and that is Julie Andrews. Oh, but man, yeah. Oh, man, yeah. Still, though, it is true. You do bring up a good point that Emily Blunt will have some massive competition against Yondu right there. So that will be some pretty interesting comparisons. Alright, so let's see. Looks pretty good. May not be amazing, but it should be good. I'm mostly impressed with the use of 2D animation. That looks impressive. And let's see. I am surprised about everything in the trailer, including some surprise casts, including Colin Firth and Meryl Streep, who just get off reprising their roles in Mamma Mia 2. That's actually a very interesting connection that I never thought of, yeah. I don't think, like, they will have big roles in this, but it is funny that we did see a little bit of a reunion of Meryl Streep and Colin Firth in a musical movie. In a sequel to a musical movie, on top of that. So yeah, wow, I never thought of that, but yeah, there are a lot of strong connections between Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again, and Mary Poppins Returns. I never really thought of that. So, it does look like a lot of people are fascinated to check this one out, or probably interested to see what they're going to do. So, overall, I will say, like, best case scenario, it could be in the levels of the 1964 film. Worst case scenario, I can imagine that this is going to be like Song of the South, where the live action bits are just meh, but the animated bits are really worth admiring. Okay, so I think we're pretty good with Mary Poppins Returns, and now we are going to go into our next story, which is going to be, well, at least we assume, to be another live-action animation hybrid. And what I am going to be talking about is something that we have seen a picture of, like an official picture, but it's only a signal that it will be happening. So from there, what I am talking about, we're going to be jumping from Disney to Warner Brothers and gonna go into LeBron James's Space Jam. Now, you might recall, people, that this week there was a picture that came out that showed this locker room, and in there it featured 4 prominent names to reveal and have a bit of a confirmation that yes, Warner Brothers is indeed working on another Space Jam movie, and you do see little hints of people and companies that are going to be working there as well. Like, I saw, like, if you do look closely, there is a little bit of a bottle that has the logo of Warner Animation Group there. But in terms of the people that will be presented, of course, you got Bugs Bunny, you got LeBron James, but also 2 new people that are confirmed to be a part of the project. You got Terrence Nance, who is going to be on board as the new director. And also, we got Ryan Coogler, the director of films such as Creed and Black Panther. He is going to be in this project as a producer. So this is going to be a big thing right over here, is actually the factor that, yes, Space Jam 2 is becoming more and more and more of a reality, and they got more people on board to actually go and create this project. But there is something that is actually very interesting, and you might notice this from the title here from this article in Screen Rant, that yes, we can no longer call this Space Jam 2, because it is not going to be a sequel. So for now, we can just say that this is LeBron James's Space Jam. That's technically the tentative title. That's so far what we can call this. I mean, like, maybe eventually they'll just call this Space Jam Come On and Slam, who knows. But what this article is pointing out is that it mentioned that The Hollywood Reporter actually did an interview with LeBron James and his business manager, Maverick Carter. And they were pretty much discussing about LeBron James's career and his step into the entertainment industry, especially when he did actually receive some good praise from the movie Trainwreck, where he came in and acting out with Amy Schumer and Bill Hader, and actually did a really good job at it. So he is expanding his acting horizons and also his filmmaking horizons to get into movies as well. And from there is actually one major quote from this Hollywood Reporter article, and by the way, if you guys are interested in reading it, The article itself is called LeBron James is Already Winning Hollywood. So if you want to read that full article, which, like I said, discusses about his whole career in Hollywood and how he's balancing out his career in basketball and as a filmmaker and entertainer and stuff like that. And of course, they would go and discuss about his future projects, one of which being Space Jam. But one article in particular that did catch a lot of people, a lot of people's eyes here, is actually this little sentence that Carter and James stress that their version will not be a sequel. It can certainly be the beginning of a new franchise. There's already been one that was good. We gotta make a film that's great, says Carter. So that's pretty much the big thing that we have learned this week about LeBron James's Space Jam, is that not only do we know some people that are going to be involved, including Ryan Coogler and Terrence Nance, but also they're pretty much rebooting the series altogether, well, rebooting the movie altogether. They're going to make something new and hopefully make something big enough that they can go and create a brand new franchise out of, so that they can make an actual Space Jam 2, but more like LeBron James's Space Jam 2. So that would be the reality of what could be a Space Jam 2. Now, it is actually very interesting to discuss about the sequel to Space Jam, and this was something that's been long in production because ever since the release of the first Space Jam, Warner Brothers tried so hard again and again and again in order to create a sequel to Space Jam. And for those of you who do watch my videos, you may recall for Animation Look Back Looney Tunes, I did go into the history of the making of Space Jam and even afterwards, and Warner Brothers would try so many things in order to capitalize on the success of Space Jam, but it didn't necessarily work out. Like, at one point, they wanted to directly make a sequel to Space Jam, but Michael Jordan wouldn't want to be involved with it. And then they tried to do different directions, including a spy movie with Jackie Chan. And then finally, they ultimately decided to settle with making to pretty much make a new series out of it, trying to make a new movie, per se, with Looney Tunes Back in Action, which that, unfortunately, even though it is more critically approved than Space Jam, it turned out to be a box office bomb, since Space Jam, even as of right now, even as I'm recording this, is still the highest grossing basketball movie of all time. And who would have thunk, like, compared to, out of all the movies, it's Bugs Bunny and the gang that actually got that basketball money. Who knew? But yeah, so it is great that, Warner Brothers finally has the courage to go and actually create another Space Jam movie, but with a new prominent basketball all-star with LeBron James. But honestly, with this idea of another Space Jam movie and trying to make it more of a reboot than an actual sequel, there is something that does worry me when looking at this. And let's just be honest, guys. When it comes to the popularity of Space Jam, like, the reason why right now it is such a cult phenomenon, like, it really is something that it is just purely run by nostalgia. Because if you look at Space Jam critically as a movie, it ain't really all that great. I mean, there are a few good notes to mention about Space Jam, especially with the animation. It actually looks amazing, and it definitely is on par with something like Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It's just that with Space Jam, when you look at it in the narrative sense and stuff like that, it's really nothing more but not a generic, but a bland sports movie. I mean, like, you got the oddball group who has to fight off the big, muscled-up bad guys, and they gotta, like, duke it out in a sports match, and the oddball crew, they are getting the help of a veteran of that certain sport in order to go and win the game, and that they could be happy and they didn't lose anything, and all that kind of stuff. It's the most generic story that you can go with a sports movie, and, like, Space Jam is often known to be very textbook with that. Like, a lot of people would use Space Jam as one of the best examples of that kind of story, of the kind that why this plot doesn't necessarily work out, and that it feels old and reused and stuff like that. So this is a movie that really is trying to sell in terms of being a novelty, of watching a movie with a very popular basketball player, which in that case was Michael Jordan, watching the Looney Tunes back on the big screen and have them play basketball with a lot of different Looney Tunes style cartoon gags and stuff like that. I mean, we're literally talking about a movie that is based on a godforsaken commercial. So from there, like, it's not necessarily that big of a surprise that it actually did become a success because of that novelty. The novelty of Michael Jordan, the novelty of the Looney Tunes, and like all that, and even the novelty of the animation. Like, that's how it became famous. That's how it became big. And ever since then, people have been demanding and wondering, when are we going to see another Space Jam? And since then, of course, we have seen the legacy of Space Jam make an impact onto the Looney Tunes, especially with the addition of Lola Bunny being a prominent Looney Tunes character and even used in other Looney Tunes projects like the Looney Tunes show. So, honestly, that's one thing. Like, going back into LeBron James's Space Jam movie, what I'm really worried about is if they want to do a reboot in a way that they might copy the same story elements as the first film. Like, honestly, if they are going to reboot Space Jam, then they should probably try to go into a new direction with it. They can't use the same story as what the first Space Jam did, because that one is old and redone and it's just not that good even when that film was released. So with this one, they got to think of something new. They got to think of something better. Like, I think that's going to be the biggest thing that they need to go and work on, is actually with the story. And I'm not necessarily too worried about how they are going to bring the Looney Tunes to life with the animation. I'm sure that there are some people right now that are a little bit worried about, actually, hold on a sec. I'll just be right back. Alright, sorry about that, folks. As I was saying, yes, I'm not necessarily too worried regarding the animation per se, because, like, yeah, some people might be worried about the fact that, oh, it might turn out to be computer animation. Well, maybe it might not be the case. I mean, a lot of people really did get excited when they saw the hand-drawn animation used in Mary Poppins Returns. So with that positive output, maybe we could see the same thing actually happen in this, like, we might see this in LeBron James's Space Jam, that they might actually do the same in order to really stay true with the original Space Jam. Because you got to keep in mind, a big factor into why they're making this in the first place is to capitalize on the nostalgia. So, of course, they got to make sure that the characters are hand-drawn, animated. So, yeah, honestly, like, I am a little bit doubtful of LeBron James's Space Jam. Now, I'm not doubting LeBron James himself, because he has proven time and time again that he can be an entertaining and actually a legitimately good actor in some of the movies that he was actually on, like Trainwreck. But honestly, I don't know, like, even though I am one of those people who grew up in the 90s and remember seeing Space Jam being a really big thing, I just don't know if we really do need another Space Jam. And I don't know, there's a lot of possibilities that maybe it could turn out great, maybe it could turn out crap. I honestly don't know at this point, but I probably need to see more stuff coming out related to this project right over here. But for now, I'm just gonna say, I don't know, man. It's just, I'm still in that factor of undecided. I don't know. And it needs to do a lot more in order to go and convince me. Like, this better come out with a really good looking trailer. Like, almost like what Mary Poppins Returns did. So with that said, I would like to go into the chat wall right over here. And I would like to ask, what do you guys think about this recent news about LeBron James' Space Jam being more officially happening. Are you guys excited for the project? Are you guys doubtful? Let me know what you think right now. Let me know if you're a part of the people that wants to see another Space Jam, or you think it might be pointless. I don't know. Let's see. I have yet to see Space Jam, but one thing's for sure, Space Jam live-action animation mix back in the day was innovative, but this is 13 years later. Maybe it'll be on the same quality of Roger Rabbit, maybe not, who knows. I'm just hyped. Well, technically it's been like, what? Well, technically it's like 22 years since Space Jam was released, but I do get what you mean, though. I am very curious of which animation style they use for the Looney Tunes. This movie they will use in the same animation from the classic cartoons or just computer animation. Probably computer animation, which isn't bad, but I'm more used to the classic animation from the 1940s and 1950s. I'm still pretty convinced that if they really want to try to capture the spirit of Space Jam and try to really cash in on that nostalgia, they are going to go hand-drawn. Like, I'm pretty certain. So, I'm not saying that I'm right on this, but, honestly, I'm pretty confident that I would say that they are going to use hand-drawn animation to present the Looney Tunes characters. Let's see. Worried and excited at the same time. Space Jam was one of my childhood memories and inspiration for more live-action 2D animation hybrids. I don't know if the reboot can work. Okay, so I see there is a little bit of doubt as well. Let's see. I want to support Space Jam 2 and Mary Poppins Returns because those films can bring interest back into hand-drawn animation. Oh, yeah. Oh, man. I could definitely see the hand-drawn crowd, like, trying to find anything to just, like, be hopeful. It's like, please bring back hand-drawn animation. Oh, my God. Even after all these years, that thing is never gonna change right there. Oh, my God. Whatever movie they will find, like, a little aspect of hand-drawn animation. Is it gonna be good? Is it gonna have hand-drawn? Is it gonna have hand-drawn animation? Is it gonna be there? Okay, nah, I'm just teasing. Alright, yeah, some people seem to be pretty happy to have Ryan Coogler on board to be a producer. So, yeah, honestly, I see a lot of mixed reactions, honestly. Like, there's a lot of things that people are, like, they're either really excited, still excited for Dick Van Dyke's appearance. We're talking about LeBron James' Space Jam. I would be extremely surprised if Dick Van Dyke just suddenly comes in and has a cameo in Space Jam. Like Dick Van Dyke is gonna come in like Bill Murray. Nah, I'm just teasing you, dude. I know exactly what you mean for Mary Poppins Returns. But yeah, so that's pretty much all the info that we got so far with LeBron James's Space Jam. So it is pretty interesting, but again, I feel like we really gotta wait and see for more info that we will have onto this one. Now, for our next story that we have right over here, we are going to be talking about a beloved animated feature who is having a major anniversary this year, and what I'm talking about, of course, is going to be My Neighbor Totoro. Now, if you guys have checked out your calendars, yes, My Neighbor Totoro is going to have its 30th anniversary this year. It's been 30 years since the most iconic Studio Ghibli film has been released, and Totoro himself is literally the mascot of the company. And from there, you are probably aware that GKids is actually doing some special stuff for Totoro, including a collaboration with Fathom Events in order to go and re-release the film in theaters. I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the release date is going to be at the end of September and in the beginning of October, so that you can go and check out My Neighbor Totoro on the big screen. However, this is not going to be the only thing that Totoro is going to be doing. This is not the only way that GKids will celebrate Totoro's 30th anniversary. Now, you could celebrate him in theaters, or you can celebrate it at home. Yes, GKids has announced that they are going to be releasing a special 30th anniversary Blu-ray for My Neighbor Totoro. Now, from there, this will actually come with 3 major things, and I'm just going to say right now that when it comes to the Blu-ray itself, it's not going to be anything special. It's not going to be anything different, and even the bonus features themselves is going to be the exact same as you would buy a regular GKids edition of My Neighbor Totoro, which will have the same bonus features, including Behind the Microphone, which, by the way, I'm reading my source here through High Def Digest, reading stuff like Behind the Microphone, creating My Neighbor Totoro, creating the characters, the Totoro experience, producer's perspective, creating Ghibli, the locations of Totoro, and scoring Miyazaki. So all those bonus features, which, by the way, the Blu-ray itself is definitely great, so it's not necessarily different than, again, the regular GKids edition of My Neighbor Totoro, or even not that different than the Disney Blu-ray of My Neighbor Totoro. But in terms of this special edition, it's not the Blu-ray itself that you should be excited for. It is actually what else it would have to offer. Because with this Blu-ray, it will also come with a 40-page... Woo, excuse me. It will come with a 40-page book that will be filled with plenty of fascinating concept arts and also a bunch of essays that are going to be written by the New York Times film critic A.O. Scott. But that's not all, because for the first time ever in North America, GKids is also going to be releasing the soundtrack to My Neighbor Totoro. So that's the big thing with this 30th anniversary collection, that if you buy this, you're going to get the Blu-ray of My Neighbor Totoro, of course, but also on top of that, you're also going to get the book, and you will also get the soundtrack. So really, this is a big way to celebrate My Neighbor Totoro at home, and if you want to get a present for yourself for Totoro's birthday. And honestly, this is something that we have never seen GKids did before. Like, honestly, it's rare that GKids would actually do something really big or really special for an animated feature to celebrate its anniversary, or to have like a special different kind of release. Like, the closest thing that I can imagine that GKids has done for doing something unique is actually with the Blu-ray of Chico and Rita, which, by the way, I actually have it right over here. Right here, this is the Blu-ray of Chico and Rita, and it's actually a lot thicker and a lot bigger than the other GKids Blu-rays, because you'll see here, not only does it come with the Blu-ray, and it also comes with the DVD, but it also comes with the soundtrack as well. You can actually listen to the music of Chico and Rita. So, with My Neighbor Totoro, it's a little bit similar to what Chico and Rita has right over here. I'm trying to put this freaking thing in the box. Hold on a sec. Oh, my God. Okay, maybe the other way. Okay, there we go. Much better. Okay, just gonna put that on the side right now. But yeah, it is usually rare that GKids would do this, but considering that we are talking about My Neighbor Totoro, which is one of the most beloved animated features ever made, honestly, they do have to make something that would be worth a big deal out of. So, it's not really that surprising that they would also go and include, like, a book and also release a soundtrack for it, especially when that has never been released in North America in its entire completion. Like, technically, yes, I know that you can just go on YouTube and you can listen to the soundtrack there, but it's not necessarily that different. But I mean, like, to get the music in a way that does feel official, to go and actually own the music of My Neighbor Totoro, this is the way that you gotta go and do it. Now, my biggest criticism that I would say right over here with this 30th anniversary edition of My Neighbor Totoro would actually have to be the fact that it doesn't come with a DVD, which is a bit disappointing because technically, with the GKids Blu-rays of the Studio Ghibli films, they also include the DVD with the Blu-ray as well. And honestly, it kind of sucks a little bit that they don't also come with the DVD to pretty much emphasize that this is like buying the regular Blu-ray and DVD of the GKids My Neighbor Totoro set, but this one will be a lot more special with the book, and you also got the soundtrack. So, in a way, like, having that DVD there would have made it a bigger deal than just the regular version of My Neighbor Totoro, but without it, it is a little bit disappointing. And yeah, I know nowadays it is becoming a little bit more common that we do see Blu-ray sets that don't come with the DVD, but it is kind of surprising that this is also coming from GKids as well, which they do have a really good track record of having both the DVD and Blu-ray be featured onto their sets, and I'm surprised that they left it out for this. I guess it might be more of a budget issue so that they can make room for the book and also for the soundtrack as well, but yeah, it is a little bit disappointing in that sense, but that doesn't hide the fact that this is still a really good set to own. But I will say, though, there is also another major catch to this, and that is actually regarding the price. And you got to keep in mind, like, if it comes with the Blu-ray, the soundtrack, and also this big book, this is honestly going to be something. Hold on a sec. Do we have a troll here? We do have a troll. Okay. What's the name of the troll? I'll take care of that. Don't worry. Anyways, going back to this. So of course, it's not necessarily that surprising that they are going to be a little bit more expensive. And in the case right over here, like, if you go on to, is it going to send me to a link on Amazon? Yeah, like, you go on Amazon, this is going to be a lot more expensive. This is actually $50 if you want to buy the 30th anniversary edition, which, with the Blu-rays of the Studio Ghibli films, normally they would be around half that. They would be around $30, or they would just be $25. So yeah, this is a little bit pricey, but I do feel like with the stuff that they do offer, it is quite understanding why they have to jack up the price a little bit to really make it stand out more than just the regular My Neighbor Totoro set. But I will say right now, hold on a sec. If that's going to be the case, then, alright, I'm just going to do this. There we go. Alright. So, anyways, back to what I was talking about. Now, in terms of my recommendation of, people who would actually want this, I'm just going to say right now that, of course, this is going to be something that collectors, especially collectors of, GKids Blu-rays, they will want to have this right now. But, on the other hand, though, this is something that I feel like if you're a casual fan of My Neighbor Totoro, like, if you like the movie but you don't love it, I don't think this thing would be absolutely necessary, especially if you're somebody who already owns the regular GKids Blu-ray of My Neighbor Totoro, or if you're someone like me and you already own the Disney version of My Neighbor Totoro, then this might not be necessary. It might not be worth the major upgrade. But you know who this would be perfect for, though? It's going to be for the die-hard My Neighbor Totoro fans. Like, this is honestly perfect for those who are big fans of the movie. They would consider it their favorite animated feature, or at the very least, one of their favorite Studio Ghibli films. Then at that point, that would be worth it to go and get this. That would be worth it to go and get the upgrade, to also get the book that features all the artwork and the essays, and to go and get the soundtrack. Like, if you really love My Neighbor Totoro, then this is probably a great way to show your love right over there. So that's pretty much the big thing with the 30th anniversary of My Neighbor Totoro. And the release date of this one is actually going to be December 11th. So this might actually be a great idea for a Christmas gift or a holiday gift if you know someone who absolutely adores My Neighbor Totoro. So you might do a little bit of last minute Christmas shopping and pick this one up so that you can give it to that person. So with all that said and done, I would like to know into the chat wall right over here, what do you guys think about this version of My Neighbor Totoro, the 30th anniversary Blu-ray of My Neighbor Totoro? Would you be interested in buying this right over here? Would you be interested in reading the book and listening to the soundtrack? Or would you rather just keep the original version, like the regular GKids version or the Disney version? I would like to know what you think. And while you do that, let me just fix something real quick. All right. Okay, so people, what you saying? Let's see. I kind of grew up with Fox's release version before Disney and GKids got their hands on it, so I'm not interested in buying. But I would get the soundtrack of the movie, though. Honestly, that does remind me that, hold on. Can Take or Leave, not a preferred Ghibli movie, prefer Castle in the Sky and Spirited Away. But you do bring up a very good point that I can imagine there is going to be a lot of people out there that they are going to buy it just for the purpose of having the soundtrack or just selling that in general, that they would just want to keep the disc of the My Neighbor Totoro Blu-ray, and they would sell the rest in order to gain a little bit money back from their $50 investment. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if on eBay you'll see a lot of people that will list the soundtrack or the book and stuff like that. That would not be surprising. Let's see. I never knew that Fox had the rights to Totoro. That's very interesting. Well, that is actually long before Disney got their hands on it. Like that was before Disney came in and decided to grab the distribution. Actually, what's more interesting, it's actually with My Neighbor Totoro that it's not just Fox, it's actually Troma Films that actually got their hands on it. Yes, the same people that brought you The Toxic Avenger and all those disgusting B movies, they were also the ones that played a big part in introducing My Neighbor Totoro to North America. Or at least I think it's My Neighbor Totoro, but I know that they did that with a Studio Ghibli film. Let's see now. Well, I do know what I'll be purchasing with my birthday cash. I love My Neighbor Totoro's simplistic charm and goofiness, so this will definitely be one I'll add to my anime collection. It'll go great between Ponyo and the first season of Super Mario Bros. Super Show. Okay, so it looks like a lot of people, and some people are saying they should have added May in the Kitten Bus, but that's more a part of the Ghibli Museum shorts, and that's like a different thing there altogether. I know a lot of people are a bit disappointed that those shorts are not prominently shown in North America and that they can only be seen in the Ghibli Museum, but that's the thing. They can only be seen in the Ghibli Museum, so, I mean, what else can I say about it? Okay, so, I think, we're pretty much all good right over here with this story, and now it is going to be time for the grand finale. And oh boy, we got a pretty crazy grand finale for you today. And before I begin, I would like to give you guys a little bit of a reminder of what happened in a previous episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. Now, you might have remembered, like, probably one of the most memorable moments of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast so far is when I bursted out and made an entire rant about the cartoon community. And also, like, it was at the moment when there was that mass shooting threat at CalArts because of that CalArts style. And I pretty much bursted out about all my problems, not only with the cartoon community, but also with my trolls and my haters, and the way that they would unjustifiably bash me for whatever reasons that they would have, rather they be minor or anything else and stuff like that. Like, I'm sure there are some people who have seen it, then they would remember that quite well, that I had to really let everything out of my system right there. But, oh god, some people are just going, some people are bracing themselves going, oh no, AniMat is ranting again! He's gonna do an angry rant! Guys, don't worry. I'm not going to do a rant. I'm not going to be coming in and going to go on a massive rant. You're not going to see me be angry in this episode. What I'm saying here is that someone else did a massive rant. And who I'm talking about, in fact, he did a rant very similar to what I did. And what I'm talking about is the mysterious Mr. Enter. Yes, what happened this week is that the mysterious Mr. Enter actually released a video called Talking About My Online Harassment, which is more than 30 minutes long. And in that video, Mr. Enter just pretty much decided, okay, it's no longer time to be silent, and I'm just gonna go all out on every single person and call them out by name in terms of, like, people who would just relentlessly bash him. So from there, like, he didn't hold back at all, and you could tell Mr. Enter was angry. Le garçon est fâché. And from there, like, he would go all out on anybody who would criticize and attack him for every single thing, because you got to keep in mind, this is actually 3 years worth of bottled up emotions, 3 years of people who were just bashing him for whatever reason, rather it be stuff that he did in his past or any other projects that he did outside of YouTube. And he went all out. He was going after YouTubers such as Turkey Tom, Easy Peasy, and Clay Claymore, Pan Pizza. He was going after trolls in general, and even bringing back the discussion of the difference between trolls and cyberbullying. He was going after people who would bash him for his failed Indiegogo campaign, and he was also going after people who would just write down negative comments and negative reviews on his book in Amazon. And he was just going at it for like 30 minutes long. And as I've stated before, like, this is like 3 years worth of people just picking on him, people attacking him, people harassing him on no matter what thing he did. And within those 30 minutes, he decided to just go all out. The cork is popped out, and it's just a massive explosion. So this really was a 30-minute rant of Mr. Enter saying that I cannot take this crap anymore, and I am going to fight back. And I'm just going to go and say that in terms of who Mr. Enter is, because there is a bit of a possibility that some people might not think that, well, or some people might not know who Mr. Enter is. So I'm just going to say right now, to give you guys a little bit of context, that with Mr. Enter, he is known to be one of the most controversial figures in the cartoon community. People either absolutely adore him, or there are people who absolutely despise him. And that's kind of the big thing with Mr. Enter, is that they either love his content and they love the comments that he would make regarding animated films, or they would just absolutely hate his stuff and they would go hard on him. And unfortunately, with the way that the internet would treat him, it's almost like Mr. Enter would be the Chris Chan of cartoons. And I don't mean that by who he is himself or the content that he would release, but more in the way that, as he would say it, the commentary community, like, they would just go after him hard. Like, they would kind of use him as a poster child of having someone to just discuss regarding the kind of person to not be, the kind of person who has a lot of problems in him, and they would go after him hard, like, one by one by one by one. And especially this year, I know for sure that 2018 was really not a good year for Mr. Enter. Like, things were going really bad. Like, not only does he have to deal with so many of these people continuously making videos about the problem with Mr. Enter, and, like, they would go and try to capitalize on the hate on that, while also making videos that would really go viral. But on top of that, like, he had his Indiegogo campaign, which turned out to be a failure, and it would go and add fuel to the fire. And ever since that failed campaign, he would be losing thousands of subscribers. Like, if you go on Social Blade, like, that thing is just godforsaken tragic the way that it would go down. Like, he peaked up to 280,000, and then suddenly it would just keep going down from there, losing thousands and thousands, like, just trickled down every day. You know, it really is a bit of a sad sight right over there. But from there, with all that said, yeah, like, in a way, Mr. Enter is a little bit like me, that he would just be a YouTuber that would often discuss about animation stuff. He would lean a little bit more towards TV shows and stuff like that, and I would lean more towards movies, but that's kind of the whole summary with the mysterious Mr. Enter. And a lot of people would just go after him, and like, you know, and like, it is true that technically, like, he has done a lot of bad things in the past, but people would just go on and on and on, like, try to pin him as like a bad example of who not to be on the internet and stuff like that. And for the most part, Mr. Enter was mostly staying silent. Like, he didn't really say anything. Like, he was mostly in the belief of like, don't feed the trolls and eventually this issue will just go away and stuff like that. But this time around, he decided, you know what, enough is enough. The issue is not going to go away. So he decided he's going to go and step forward and just go attack, just go attack all the people to say, enough is enough. I'm not going to stand this. And I'm no longer going to be seen as like the kind of like this person that people could just make fun and mock of. Like, he is not going to stand being the Chris Chan of cartoons right over here. And honestly, I'm just gonna say right now that it is about freaking time that he says something about it. It's about time. And I know that at this point, there are a lot of people who would go and come out and say that, oh, why don't you just block him? You don't have to give them attention that they would ask for. Like, you could just block him and just move on with your life. Well, that's the thing. Maybe it would work for some people, but this is something that would not necessarily work entirely for internet personalities like me or the mysterious Mr. Enter. Because the thing is, like, when you block someone, sometimes it doesn't necessarily work. Because you never know what type of lunatic people would actually be there. You never know what kind of lunatics would actually come up and try to troll you or try to harass you for like, for whatever reason that they want. Like, blocking them would not necessarily be enough. Sometimes, like, they would go and like create numerous of different accounts just to go and attack just to attack whoever they want. So sometimes when, when they would keep pushing you and the tactics of just blocking them and just ignoring them doesn't work, then you have to learn to actually go and push back. And honestly, a lot of things here that Mr. Enter would bring up, like, I can definitely relate, because I definitely do understand where he is going with, and I do understand myself that I would often have some crazy haters, and I would have people harassing me just for, like, the smallest and most minor things in general, rather it be, like, having an opinion on Sony Animation, or even just having an opinion on Illumination Entertainment. For those people, it's enough to go and label me as a terrible person, and I should be ashamed of myself, and I should delete my channel, and whatever, and all that kind of stuff, you know? So I do understand that sometimes you gotta call them out on it. You gotta call them out that sometimes that what they're saying is just entirely bullcrap, and that they must need to stop. You know, they have to do that. And this, and sometimes you got to be assertive to show you that, you're not the type of person that you want to mess with. Like, you got to show some assertiveness that you would be capable of fighting back. And I'm glad that finally Mr. Enter would actually go and do that, because as I've stated before, like, you could tell that this is just 3 years worth of holding back emotions, of holding back the anger and the stress that's really messing up with his mind. Like, I'm sure, I wouldn't necessarily want to be in Mr. Enter's position because of the ways that the internet would just treat the guy. Like, it is a little bit cruel in the sense, especially with a lot of factors that he would bring up, like people like Turkey Tom or Easy Peasy, that they would actually go and be as far as accusing him of being a pedophile, or also trying to dox him and his editor. Now, at that aspect, that's definitely wrong, and those people like Turkey Tom and Easy Peasy should be ashamed of themselves for even going into that route, just for slamming on a YouTuber that I'm pretty sure they have never met. So that's kind of so really, yeah, I can understand his anger at that point. And you know, it's about time that he actually does show some assertiveness and to pretty much lay out a message that he is not the kind of person that you necessarily want to mess with, because they will call you out on when you're doing something stupid just to bully and harass someone. But there is one thing that I will say, however, that maybe with this video right over here, it's not necessarily perfect. And there are some aspects right over here that it did make me a little bit comfortable, and it did not necessarily sell as well about what he wanted to say online. Because the thing is, right over here, there are a few tactics where it does show that Mr. Enter did get his emotions, get the best of him, and it didn't necessarily work out in terms of presenting what he wants to say and where he wants to stand. And the one example that I do have is the way that he would go after YouTubers like Clay Claymore, Turkey Tom, Pan Pizza, and all those guys. Because if you notice right over here, if you notice the way that he would discuss about them, the way that he would go after these people individually, there is a bit of irony in there. Because the funny thing is that, yeah, he would go and slander and bash Turkey Tom for the things that he said on his video, but ironically enough, when he would go and say things like that, that's honestly something that I feel like they're really being... hold on, sorry. I was just fixing up my own troll problem in the chat wall right over here, but what I'm trying to say is that when Mr. Enter would go after people like Turkey Tom, it would feel exactly like a Turkey Tom video. Not just in terms of the tone and also the style of the video itself, but also in terms of the factor that in terms of how Mr. Enter would go after those people. Even down to the point that Mr. Enter would reduce to name calling. And by that, I mean that you'll notice that in the beginning of the video, he would actually be calling people like Clay Claymore and Turkey Tom children. And there are a few examples of that. I just want to find some examples. Just want to see if he would say it right over here. Hold on.
Picking on a target that they don't like, but the second you either A, pick on a target that they do like, or you reveal yourself to have a flaw like, you know, a typical human being, they cannibalize each other. Clay Claymore was pretty popular in that circle, until he attacked Doug Walker, who was really well liked. SpongeBob or Teen Titans Go or whatever way within the commentary community, because the commentary community is built on drama. Here's how that community works. Laundry, or they just get bored. It doesn't matter if you're as small as Clay Claymore or if you're as not. They either get
I know it's here somewhere.
Commentating on, they're bad at hiding their own dirty laundry, or they just get bored. It doesn't matter if you're as small as Clay. Commented on my Indiegogo trailer because, in his own words, his fans kept asking him to, which was really cute. He found himself nestled within the hellhole known as the commentary community. And within that community, I was, maybe still am, a huge talking point. They'd make these repetitive as fuck videos complaining about my repetitive as fuck videos. About things like how I talked about SpongeBob or Teen Titans Go or whatever way too much, how my editing is shit.
Okay, hold on a sec. Actually, there is I know it's in there somewhere. I'm just not... Or would it be?
And then his community and his fan is here. They all go away eventually. So let's go back to that old internet adage. The piece of advice
I'm still committed to actually finding it.
Funny. Like, an adorable child kind of way.
This is it! Holy crap.
And it's probably where my first few waves of trolls came from. And Clay Claymore is one of those trolls who, yeah, the old adage of don't be the trolls kind of worked. But in all honesty, I find Clay Claymore funny. Like, an adorable child kind of way. Especially in hindsight. He talks...
That's an example. That's one example right there. So there is also another one that I know is, like, I know that I can find it. And that's when he goes with, when he goes after Turkey Tom.
More or less ripping a PSA right made by Autism Speaks, an organization that seems to hate autistic people more than Kiwi Farms, which is impressive, especially because they have the front of a charity. But beyond that, Turkey Tom is a child. Mentally or physically, I don't know, but he is a child.
There you go. There you go. So basically, that's kind of the point that I wanted to prove, is the way that Mr. Enter would go after them. It feels honestly no different than how Turkey Tom would go after Mr. Enter. And to give you a little bit more of a better example, like, here's the thing. imagine if Turkey Tom does make another video slamming Mr. Enter once again. Now, it would be very easy to imagine that Turkey Tom would accuse Mr. Enter of things like being a child, of ripping off other YouTubers, of also, what else? Of also, like, that he's someone that needs help. Like, it's very easy to imagine that Turkey Tom would go after Mr. Enter that way. Now, you go and take that, and if you just switch the roles where now it's Mr. Enter going after Turkey Tom, what makes Mr. Enter the better man here? What makes him better than Turkey Tom or Clay Claymore by accusing them of being a child, of saying that these are people that need help and stuff like that? Now, I'm not saying that I'm here to defend Turkey Tom or to slander on Mr. Enter or on anything like that. That's not what I'm doing in this case. It's just, I'm someone who does not believe that spreading an anti-bullying message would work by bullying the bully per se. It seems a little bit hypocritical. And in Mr. Enter's words, it makes him look a bit childish, to be very honest. So that's honestly a bit of my problem, that it's hard to really take him seriously when he's acting exactly like Turkey Tom or Pan Pizza when he is going after those people. Now, another little issue that I do have right over here is actually the factor of how he is angry throughout the whole video, and that's where the length of it might end up screwing him over. Because here's the thing, I understand this anger. I understand the rage that he is feeling throughout that 30 minutes right here. Because the thing is, when you are someone who is that angry, it is very easy to look at any piece of criticism against you, rather it be like this small little YouTube comment or something that is a few paragraphs long, and on top of that, just trying to think a little bit. Yes, or if you find something that is like a few paragraphs long and someone built it with constructive criticism, and they did that with the intentions of helping you, more like to like a bit of a recommendation as a friend, it's easy to take all those and just view that as just worthless trolling, that they mean nothing to you. And as I stated before, Mr. Enter here, he fired on all cylinders. He didn't just go after the YouTubers that would lay crap on him, but he would also go and crap on those that would criticize his failed Indiegogo campaign. And he would also crap on others that would criticize him for his book. Now, if you just watch this video in itself, and you would just see what Mr. Enter is talking about in terms of like the reviews that he would get online and stuff like that, in terms of like all these different reviews on Amazon and stuff like that, like right here, for example, you know, like if you just see it in that context, then it's easy to understand that, yeah, this is just a troll. What he has written here is just paragraphs of nothingness, and it's just for the purpose of making Mr. Enter angry. But if you actually do take the time to actually read those comments to understand what they're trying to say, some of them might be a criticism to go and say, like, oh, maybe they would have a point. Like, there might be some people that say that they would actually read it. And that's honestly the dangerous factor of what Mr. Enter is trying to say here, is the factor that they're, like, you know, honestly, like, he is taking a lot of these criticisms and he's just throwing it in the ground right over here. So, honestly, he might be firing too much at those people who might actually have a good point on some of the flaws that he would have, rather it be on how he presented his Indiegogo campaign or how he has written his book and stuff like that. So, there might be some factors here that he might go a little bit too much, and it probably would have been just better for the video itself that he just focuses on just his YouTube aspect, just going after people like Pan Pizza and Turkey Tom and Easy Peasy and stuff like that. Like, you know, like, probably something that he would have, like, if he could have just take more time to control his rage and try to show his facts more logically than just rationally and emotionally, then it probably would have been a little bit more better. But I will say, however, that these problems that I do have with the video itself, they do not reflect on Mr. Enter at all as a person. Even though I don't know Mr. Enter personally, I know for a fact that this is not really who he is as a person 24/7. This is just Mr. Enter whose emotions got the best of him, where this is just 3 years that is being built up and he decided to just lay it all out. That I do completely understand, you know? Like, this is just something that, it's really Mr. Enter just really has something that he needs to get off. He needs, like, something to get off his chest and just get rid of those things. So, with that said, though, I still do applaud Mr. Enter for actually doing this video, to say that he is not going to stand for, like, all the trolls and all the haters that are going after him. And honestly, it is a bit inspirational that sometimes you can't just be silent and let the problems just go away. Eventually, you gotta speak out and you gotta say something when there is a major problem. And I'm going to say this right now as a little side note, that I can guarantee you that in the future, like, you can't just ignore the problems. You can't just say, like, oh, well, this thing will go away and I can continue with my life. No. Eventually, your feelings for it will have to come out. That's exactly why I can tell you that in the future, Doug Walker is going to be coming out with his thoughts on the Change the Channel controversy. Now, I know that some people could say that, oh, well, that controversy is a little bit dead. Not necessarily. It's just sleeping. All it needs right now is just one little spark to just reactivate the controversy of Channel Awesome all over again, and eventually Doug Walker would have no choice but to just come out, maybe with Rob Walker as well, to discuss about that controversy. I will guarantee you that. Maybe it'll not happen soon, maybe it won't even happen for a few years, but eventually that will happen. But I will say, back onto the video itself, though, it really is great to see that there is also some positive outcomes that are coming out of it as well, that he is already making amends with some YouTubers, including Saber Sparks, Pan Pizza, and other people that would previously criticize him and just make fun of him and all that kind of stuff. But what is also interesting to note, and something that I feel like what would be a great next step that Mr. Enter can do, considering that, well, now his emotions are pretty much flushed out. Like, I'm sure, like, he feels a lot more peaceful right now. And feel free to just call me crazy, and this is just a suggestion. He doesn't have to do this. But I feel like right now, I think it would be best that Mr. Enter should go in contact and make amends to people like Turkey Tom and Easy Peasy. Now, I understand it does seem crazy, especially like when these are the people that try to dox him and call him a pedophile and stuff like that. But the reason why I say this is because, like, this could honestly send out a great message, not just on YouTube, but to the commentary community also, to show that Mr. Enter is a cool guy, that he is truly someone that has changed, and that he's no longer the person that should be a target to just constantly make fun of again and again and again. Because the thing is, if he can make amends with him, like, Mr. Enter can greatly benefit from that. And also, like, people like Turkey Tom and Easy Peasy can also just go and benefit from that as well, that they can learn from each other and improve from their mistakes. And the reason why I go and say that, to go and make amends with your harshest critics, because this is something that I have went through myself. You might have remembered back in the beginning of the year where I have been through a little bit of drama myself when Yoshi Player would release his video of the problems with AniMat and would bring that out, and that was a little bit of madness right there. And beforehand, I was thinking like Mr. Enter as well, to not say anything and to just back off so that I can just focus on my own things, and eventually this issue would just blow away in itself as long as I can stay silent. But then there was at one point, the video that I mentioned to you, the episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast, where I did a little bit of a rant, just going after all the trolls, all the haters, and all the people I have issues with in the cartoon community, just really went all out. And I also, at the end, I also went after Yoshi Player as well with his video, because like I was in the same state of mentality as Mr. Enter, where I was just angry and I'm not going to hold anything back, and I'm going to go and call out on everyone's bullcrap. But then a few days afterwards, that's when I realized, oh crap, I think I might have screwed up and I went a little bit too far going after Yoshi Player the way I did. So what I did soon afterwards is that I went and contacted Yoshi Player myself to say, hey, can we have a chat just to learn from each other, just to make sure whatever controversy or flame war is going on the internet, just to say that it's all over and stuff like that? And he agreed. And from there, he actually released it on his YouTube channel, where we discuss about some misunderstandings that we would have from each other, and to know like who we really are and what we can learn from that aspect. And since then, like, I'm all cool with Yoshi Player, you know? Honestly, I do feel grateful with what Yoshi Player has done for me in order for me to improve myself as a person and as a YouTuber, and to fully understand the situations that are currently going on. And hopefully the feelings are mutual with Yoshi Player as well, that he is cool with me. So honestly, it's from that experience is why I say that I feel like maybe Mr. Enter can benefit well from talking to people like Turkey Tom, to see if like they can not only be cool with each other, but to also learn to know like what they can learn from themselves to go and improve upon, and actually listen to each other if they have any little issues, so that they can understand them and they can actually go and improve, and for both of them that they can enter a new chapter in their lives and for their own YouTube channels, so that they can progress with a better image of themselves. I know this sounds crazy. It's a weird suggestion, and maybe it's not going to happen, but it's just a little bit of an idea to help out Mr. Enter. But for the most part, I do congratulate him for making this video, and that he is making some great progress by making amends with some other YouTubers out there. And you know what? I think it does send out a great message that, yeah, hopefully, like, not only benefit him, but also benefit, like, other animation reviewers as well, that we're not the type of people that you want to mess with. Because if you're gonna bash us, or if you're gonna hate on us for something stupid or insignificant, or if you're gonna beat a dead horse again and again, we will call you out on this. We will bite back, and we will fight back, because our image is not something that you want to go and mess with, because we will stand on our position, and we will stand that what we are doing is harmless entertainment. And I will say, though, that yes, Mr. Enter has done some pretty bad things in the past, and I have done some really bad things in the past as well. And we will continue, both of us, to go and make some mistakes in the future, but that shouldn't be a reason to cause drama and sound the alarms and try to create a mountain out of a molehill. So from there, I think it really is something that can really be beneficial, and honestly, this would be great for Mr. Enter as well. That honestly, to be, you know, to show that you got to be more assertive to go and fight back against the trolls, that sometimes that not feeding the trolls and just ignoring them isn't enough, and just muting them or blocking them is not necessarily enough. Sometimes you got to call them out when they're being stupid and hating you for no freaking reason. So that's pretty much my whole commentary on the Mr. Enter video about talking about my online harassment. So from there, I would like to know, what do you guys think about this video in particular? If you have seen it, of course, or if you do watch Mr. Enter's video, are you happy that this actually did happen? Are you happy for Mr. Enter that he finally stood up for himself and faces his trolls and bullies? I would like to know, how do you feel about this whole situation? Let's see. Do we have any comments so far? It'll take a little while, but eventually they will come. Do people have any? Okay, well, they're having their own conversation. Let's see. I'm happy he made the video. I'm glad that he's gaining more respect. Exactly. I can definitely see how Mr. Enter can deserve these criticisms, but I do believe that he's not harming anyone alongside from a couple of death threats here or there. Hopefully Mr. Enter can turn out a new leaf and become a better person in general. Obligatory misanthropony beating a dead horse joke. Okay, I can really relate. From the fan art I made on Twitter or Tumblr, or making comments on YouTube, do get some recognition, but sometimes I always feel constantly ignored, like making 2 likes or a single reply and there's nothing. But why argue? Everyone can have their own opinion or option or opinion, and not everything is always about good reviews or comments. Just be happy with what you get, and then the reward, and there's a reward to that. The less the better, the better. Okay. Well, let's see. I'm glad that Enterbot brought this out of his I'm glad that Enter brought this out of his system. I read some of his older DA journals, and he did come across similarly to this video. But yeah, I mean, like, you could tell there are times when, like, he would be, that he would try to go, like, he does have these emotions. There are clues, but never did he ever, like, go all out like that. Let's see. Turkey Tom is 17, though. Well, still, I mean, Turkey Tom is still making a major influence on, he's still making a major influence and really did play a big role recently on the Mr. Enter hate, so, of course, but still, anyways, watch out, trolls, don't screw with content creators. Exactly, because people like me and Mr. Enter can call you out when you're doing stupid crap like that. Alright, so I think with all that said, I think we are pretty much good with this. So, I just want to say thank you all so much for watching this episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast, and hopefully you guys had a great time with this. So, this is definitely a lot of fun, and definitely awesome to get into these crazy stories here. So, hopefully next week we will have an equal amount of crazy stories in animation to go and discuss about. So, with all that said and done, I just would like to say thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, see you later, dudes!